Welcome to Graceful Warriors, where listeners lace up their combat boots and join Monica Hansen, a former Desert Storm Army sergeant with 7 years of service. Monica, along with her expert guests, provide real biblical advice for navigating the spiritual battles of life. The show begins now.
Well, hello, Graceful Warriors. Welcome back to another episode of the Warriors Table. I'm your host, Monica Hansen. Thank you so much for returning back to the show and supporting this podcast. Hey, we have a great gal in the back studio with us today. But first of all, before I bring her on, I wanted to say, have you checked out my book on Amazon or Barnes & Noble? If you haven't yet, check it out. It's called Captured by His Heart. It's a book of poetry that God gave me over the 4-year course of time. And it's an amazing book. It'll really grab your heart. It's one of those tear jerkers. And I hate saying that because it's just like, who wants to read a tear jerker? But it actually stirs your heart in thinking it. And it answers those questions of, why am I here? What's the purpose? Why am I in this situation? And is there really a God? And is there really heaven? What's that all about? You know, things that we ask ourselves throughout the course of life. And God answered those questions. And so I challenge you to check out that book, see for yourself if the answers that you have been asking for are in that book. And then also, we have a store. Yes, a store for your merchandise pleasures. We have all of our t-shirts, hats, coffee mugs, and an array of things that you could sport around and encourage others to listen to one of your favorite podcasts, right? I know there are many. I have many myself. So in the background, we have the president of Invisible Warriors. And man, when I saw this, obviously all of you know that I'm a veteran and my vets are near and dear to my heart of my battle buddies. And so when I saw this, I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to get her on top of the fact of, you know, there's not very many organizations, I could say, that would support the women veterans. You know, when I call the VA, they are always saying, well, can I speak to the vet? And I'm like, I am the vet, right? So Nancy Becher is going to come on and talk to us about what she is doing for all of the individual warriors that are females that have served their country from all the different branches. And let's bring her in now. How you doing there, Nancy?
Hi, everybody.
I'm so glad you're here, Nancy, and I'm really excited to get into this because, I mean, like I was telling all of our listeners, you know, even the battle is with the VA when I call them, and they're always saying, well, let me speak to the vet. And, you know, and it's even driving around. I mean, I have my veteran sticker on my car, and they're like, oh, people will walk up to you and say, thank the veteran for their service. And I'm like, you're welcome. I serve too. You know, there's the Me Too thing in a good way, you know, of us veterans that have served that are females. But before I get into that, Nancy, tell me, we always have icebreaker questions. Tell me if you could have one superpower besides where I know where we're going to talk about today of your background, what superpower would that be?
Traveling back in time.
Really? Oh my gosh. Where would you go?
Probably the first part of last century, like 1905.
Oh my gosh. I have never had that type of answer. That really is awesome. You know, I like the 1950s because of the just the clothing style. You know, the guys were still in the slacks, the shirt, the tie, girls were in dresses. You know, there was more respect amongst the genders, you know, and it was just like, wow. I just love that time. I love that time. So that's amazing. So Give us a little bit of background of how you got into the Invisible Warriors. Give us a little bit of background of just you, Nancy.
Okay. About 10 and a half years ago, my husband and my husband was 23 years in the Marine Corps,
Right.
retired as a master sergeant, and
Mhm.
we moved to Michigan to take care of my parents who were in their 90s. And we had one night in February, and you got to remember in Michigan in February, it's cold, it's snowy,
Right.
it's yucky.
Right. She's in Michigan.
And we had taken my parents to a potluck dinner.
Hmm.
And it was now time to get them back out into the car. So I had gone out to get the car to bring up for them to get into. And another car in the parking lot sideswiped me as I
Right.
was getting in. And so I fell out and my foot landed in a hole in a drainage ditch. And I
Ooh,
twisted and went down and was in immediate pain,
crucial
but
pain.
figured, well, I've just really done a deal on my foot and I've sprained my ankle and it'll get better.
Hmm.
Went to the doctor's the next day. He said, yep, there's something wrong, but I'm just this old GP. I have no clue what's going on. Go see a specialist. 6 months later and 5 doctors later, they found out I had been walking around on broken bones, torn tendons, and torn ligaments.
How in
And
the
they
world do you go through 5 doctors later? Were these guys all not educated in the field?
and they were all looking at the same x-rays and MRIs.
Oh my
One
God.
doctor said, yeah, there's nothing we can do for you. Another doctor said, well, PT is going to take care of all of this. Another doctor said, well, we're going to have to amputate your leg.
Wow. Oh my
And I
gosh.
kept moving on because I didn't like any of those answers, and I
Right?
finally found a doctor who looked at the MRI and said, well, I see what's wrong. We need to operate.
Hello.
And,
Like,
they immediately got me in. They quote unquote fixed my ankle because it was okay for a little while. But
uh-huh.
because of that time that it took
Mm-hmm.
for them to figure this out, I now had contracted an autoimmune / chronic illness called complex regional pain syndrome. And
Wow.
the rule of thumb with these medical conditions that they don't really know a lot about is that in general, if they can figure out what's going on and treat it before the 6 month time frame,
Mm-hmm.
they can fix it. This was longer than that. And the doctor says, well, my dear, I'm sorry, but this is your new reality. And
Right.
the nice thing about CRPS is that it loves to migrate.
Oh no.
So once you have it, if you get hurt in another spot or if something happens,
Mm-hmm.
it goes, aha, fresh meat, and it jumps into that. So now what started off in my left ankle, it's all the way up on both legs to my hips. I have very little use of my right arm all the way up to my shoulder. I now have spine issues that they're going to have to operate on. And it just continues. But while I was seeing all of these doctors and figuring out all these things, I'm sitting in the waiting rooms and I'm hearing other women talking and I'm talking to other women. And the same theme kept coming out. Nobody knows what's wrong. I feel so lost. Nobody cares. The doctors don't want to listen to me. And I was talking to a friend of mine and I said, we've got to do something about this. This is just not right.
Right.
And that is how Invisible Warriors was actually originally founded.
Wow.
But there becomes an issue in that if you don't have either within yourself or within a close family or friend one of these medical issues, it's very difficult to understand because you don't see anything wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so if somebody says, I'm sick, they're going to go, yeah, right. You're just making it up. I've had doctors in emergency rooms tell me I was lying when I tried to explain to them what was wrong.
Mm.
So even the women themselves, because of the shame, the stigma, the maybe I'm going crazy, maybe there really isn't
Yeah.
anything wrong
Maybe
with
she's
me.
loony. Yep.
Nobody wanted to talk about it. And we spent 2 years struggling, trying to get support for women who didn't seem to want the support.
Hmm.
We live in a military community. There's Redstone Arsenal Base is right down the road from us.
Uh-huh.
There are Marine Corps alone. There are 1,200 former Marines, retired Marines, whatever.
Uh-huh.
I joke with my husband and say ex-Marines, and he gives me
Oh, yep.
like,
That's a bad thing to say.
I get hit in the back of the head for that one.
Yep.
But 1,200 of the Marines alone, that's not including the Army and the Navy and the Air
All
Force
the
and the
others.
space
Yep.
now. We have
Yeah.
NASA here, we have all the engineering companies. So there are thousands of military. And I was doing some research, and
Mm-hmm.
the statistics, so we know it's more than that, but the statistics say 22 to 24 veterans a day in this community attempt suicide.
Oh, yeah, I could believe it.
And with that, we have a very, very large population of women vets who have PTSD, who have had the experience of MST,
Mhm.
and also deal with the chronic and autoimmune illnesses because they're depressed, they're anxious, they have stomach issues, because when you have these other things, you get sick physically.
Right.
And so we decided about 6 months ago that, all right, we can't do something for a group of women who don't want our help. Let's see if we can do something for these women. And
Uh-huh.
so we've turned our focus. We're not saying if you're not a vet, we won't support you, but we've turned our focus and our mission on women veterans, because there's nobody out there. And as you said, let me talk to the vet. And you're
Yeah.
going, but I'm the vet, and so we're trying to bring to the forefront that just because we're built differently does not mean that we don't have issues that need to have support with. And
Exactly.
so that's the
Exactly.
basis of Invisible Warriors.
Wow, wow. So I want to go back to the actual accident. What happened to the person that actually hit you? Did you file all of this?
It
Are they
was a hit
paying?
and run. We
Oh
knew
my
who did it,
gosh.
but because it was in a private parking lot, and because I didn't really think I had injured myself badly enough, we didn't
Uh,
even report it, unfortunately. So, a word of warning to anybody who has any sort of a car accident: always, no matter
always.
what,
Exactly.
always report it to the police. They may not come, but at least if you've got, a file for it,
Right.
then if something comes up later, because we were never able, a year after, we knew who did this, and we saw him constantly because we were always taking my mom and dad back to the senior center potluck
Mhm.
places and things. A year after he did it, he slams a driver's license down on the table in front of me and says, see, I do know how to drive. We found out that he did not have a driver's license. He wasn't driving his own car. And the reason he took off was because he knew he would be in trouble
Oh
if he
yeah.
stayed.
Oh
And,
my gosh.
and I said over and over again, just say you're sorry. That's all I wanted was an I'm sorry. It was a mistake. It was an accident. Things happen. But
Uh-huh.
by his ignoring it was like thumbing his nose at me and saying,
Right.
you're, and again, it's a woman thing. You're not as important as I am.
I don't know. I mean, you just like, I think it's just his heart in it. He was illegal, shouldn't have been driving, didn't have a driver's license, knew he was wrong and decided to just take off. So he was wrong in all aspects. And I mean, for you to even just have the kindness of your heart, just to say, just apologize. That's all I want. When you could have went after him, he could be in jail, So, I mean,
Well,
oh my
God,
gosh.
we're talking about God,
Uh-huh.
and I do believe that God watches out for us.
Oh
And
yeah.
about a year again after the slamming down of the driver's license,
Uh-huh.
he died from very, very, very serious cancer.
Oh my gosh. You reap
So
what you sow. Talk
yeah,
about that. Oh my goodness.
yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah.
So, yeah, wow. Wow. Okay, so let's get back to the vets. Explain for our listeners, because I do have a balance of the civilian sector and the vets. For those that don't know, explain what exactly is PTSD.
Well, PTSD is, according to the CDC and all the different the medical terminology, it's when you've had a traumatic experience that you react to outside of the normal reactions,
Hmm.
and it's different for every person.
Oh yeah.
I am not a vet, but I've
Hmm.
lived with my vet for many years. But we
Uh-huh.
were in a car accident again,
Again.
and again, and luckily, nothing really happened to us. But we hit some water and hydroplaned, and went
Oh.
on two wheels across three lanes of traffic and all this kind of stuff. Well, I cannot go on that road anymore when it's raining.
Hmm.
I absolutely cannot do it. I get sick to my stomach.
Hmm.
My heart starts pounding. I start having, nightmares, waking nightmares, because I'm afraid that something's going to happen. That's
Ah.
PTSD.
Ah. Yeah, and I don't know, like even for me, like I had my PTSD was skyrocketing when I first, got out, and I have been through civilian counselors, I've been through the military, the VA counselors. None of it worked. I've been on just about every medication that they could put a woman on, and for me it was more because I know that there's an aspect of PTSD where you freeze up or you fight,
Mm-hmm.
and for me, it was, I had to fight. And it was like, because I'm also an MST victim, and explain that one for our listeners and viewers.
Yeah. MST is military sexual trauma.
Right.
And what that means is, and again, it's an experience, it's not a disease.
Right.
And the experience can be anything from someone bullying you repeatedly all the way up to physical rape.
Uh-huh.
It takes place when you're in the military
Hmm.
and you have no control. I mean,
Right.
what do you do if your superior officer comes and taps you on the shoulder and says, "Hoof it over there. We're going to get down." You
Right.
know, you could say no, but what's going to happen? You're often going to get a less than honorable discharge. If it gets
Hmm.
reported, you're going to be stigmatized. You've
Hmm.
lost your buddies, because being in the military is almost family.
Uh-huh.
You eat, breathe, and sleep this brotherhood, sisterhood,
Right.
um, and you don't want people looking down on you. And so the what normally is the way these things happen is a woman who has the experience of MST winds up getting PTSD.
Right.
Once she's got, and just for statistics sake, 1 in 3 women in the military
All right.
have been claimed as having MST.
Right.
That's about 500,000 women.
Exactly. Yep.
And so then once that has happened, that experience brings on the trauma, brings on the fight or flight, the
Mm-hmm.
nightmares, all of that. So that then they now have the PTSD as well. And because of the PTSD that's going on, they wind up with stomach issues.
Mm-hmm.
They wind up with heart conditions. They wind up with depression and
Mm-hmm.
anxiety and all of the different medical issues that come along with just these kinds of situations.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah, it is. It is bad. I mean, a lot of my viewers, I think when I first started podcasting, which was, I believe it was in 2022, at the end of 2022 when I started, and I was sharing my story. But I know even for our new listeners and viewers, I was raped in the barracks and I was taken down by two guys at the same time. And there was no way I could get out of it. And there was, even with the sexual uh uninvited invitations, from the higher ranking, there's often times where it's like, as a female, a soldier, if I don't do it, I won't get my rank, or I'll get reduced in rank, or be
Mhm.
sent off to overseas deployment where I don't want to go. There's so much. I mean, it's just kind of like in the civilian sector, those same feelings, but it's like 10 times more in the military. Because if they go ahead and they're like, well, if you're not going to do what I'm going to say, then I'm going to turn it around and say, well, you harassed me, write you up, boot you out, your career's done. And then on top of that, you don't get any benefits after serving, whether you have injuries or not. And it goes for the guys and the women, because guys are raped in the military. I had a guy that came to me and say, "Hey, Sarge, I need to talk to you." And he came to me and told me about it. And I was like, oh my God, we jumped on it right away. But it happens so much in the military. And why does it happen? Because it's like the military is looked at, honestly, like a college dorm in there. In the barracks, it's just like a college dorm. You take the uniform off and everybody is doing whatever they want. And I think we really actually need to go back to the guys' barracks over here, the girls' barracks over here, and prevent some of that and keep the locked gates, maybe, after hours, and to help prevent it. And it's so hard to report it, and because of, just like in the civilian sector, all of the backlash that you're going to get. And it's really, really hard. So, Nancy, why are not women veterans seeking the help or wanting this help?
Well, a lot of it is the same as what I was saying about just the chronic and autoimmune illnesses.
Mhm.
They want to forget.
Mhm.
They just don't want to have to deal with it any longer because they have the guilt of,
Mm.
did I do something to cause this?
Yep,
The why
that was
didn't
me.
I say something? They've got all of that. They've got all of the stigma attached. Um, and I had said, we're getting ready to do a retreat for women vets. And I
Mhm.
want to have a JAG lawyer there
Oh, wow.
because somebody who was talking to me about this said all these women vets really want is justice. They feel like, there's no justice for what happened to them and they just want that justice. And so I said, well, let's bring on the JAG lawyer and see if there's something that can be done now that they're no longer active duty. They might feel more like they could do something. And it does go back. You can, something that happened while in the military, even though you're no longer in the military, you can still file for. But this woman who was
Wait, wait,
herself,
wait. You really can do that? You could go back? Is
mhm,
there like a stipulation, like, things in society, you have that 7-year stipulation?
not that I know of.
Wow, that is news to me because I did not know that.
And you don't have to have proof of it either.
Oh my gosh, now that's hard. Now see, on that, because of the thing of women that take advantage of that crying rape when it actually never happened, that you're just like, no, I think, I don't know. I'm like the one, it's just like if somebody said that like about my husband or my son, you're just like,
You'd want the
you
proof.
exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. So
Well,
that is insane.
once again, this is not perfect, but to my knowledge, there
Uh-huh.
is no time limitation on it, and you do not have to have proof, which can be a little scary.
Yeah,
But
it can be.
that's what it is. And interestingly, though, the woman who was telling me these things was herself a JAG lawyer. She is no
Uh,
longer active. She's out, and she cannot, because she doesn't have legal credentials to practice law in Alabama, so she can't do what I was wanting her to do. But she can talk about these things, and she said honestly, the justice that she believes the women want is just to make sure that it doesn't continue to happen to other people.
exactly. Exactly. You just, and in my mind, I agree with a lot of those women. It's like, for a while after it happened, for probably that 5 years, it was a lot of self-blame. Why didn't I fight harder? I could have prevented it. Maybe I was wrong. I didn't even report it to my first sergeant, and I had CQ guy come walking in and saw it and helped me get out of there. And he was like, I'll help you report it. And I was like, no, no, because I'm probably wrong. I shouldn't have been there, but I was there with like two other girls, and they left me by myself with these guys, and I didn't know it. And so I'm like, wow, was it a setup? Because I knew that those two girls were seeing those guys. And so I don't know, but it
Sounds
really
fishy.
is. Yeah, it does. It does. So I want to talk a little bit about the invisibleness of wounds. Even I think it was just a couple of days ago, even for me, I had someone ask me, well, why do you have disability plates, on your car? Where are the wounds? I don't see anything, and yet I have scars from surgery. I have a lot of issues going on. So explain that a little
Well,
bit.
that's exactly it. Do the people see the scars?
No, they don't.
That's right. And I fight daily with people who argue that, and this was actually interesting because it was a man. He
Mhm.
was one of the higher ups for the VA. And I'm
Oh,
not sure
wow.
whether it was the VA hospital or whether it was the Veterans Administration. I think it was the Veterans Administration in general that we were arguing with. And he said, the only disabilities that are real are the ones you can see.
What?
And if you cannot see them, they do not exist. It must be really nice to decide what day you're going to be disabled and what day you're not.
Oh my gosh. And this is a higher up in the VA system.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wow.
I was sick a couple of years ago now. I had COVID and I couldn't breathe because I have asthma. I have all kinds of problems. I am in a wheelchair. So you
Right.
can see,
The
usually,
disability.
you can see, well, you can't see my disability. You can see the result of that
Correct.
disability.
Right. Right.
Okay. It's not that I've lost my leg. It's not that I have a false leg.
Mhm.
My disability is complex regional pain syndrome. I have had surgery. I have fused feet. I can't put weight on my feet. You don't see that. But I was in the
Right.
wheelchair when I went into the hospital, and they took me into the triage, and the doctor said, "Why are you here?" And I said, "Well, I'm here because I think I've got COVID. I can't breathe." And he looks at me and he says, "Well, that shouldn't make you be in a wheelchair. Why are you in a wheelchair?" Because it was obviously my wheelchair. It wasn't one that I had just sat in the emergency room.
Right.
So he knew it was mine. And he said, "Well, that's not a reason for you to be in a wheelchair. Why are you in a wheelchair?" And I said, "Because
Jeez.
I have complex regional pain syndrome." He looked at the nurse, he looked back at me, he looked back at the nurse, and he says, "You're making it up. I've never heard of that.
Oh
That's
my
why.
gosh. Oh my.
I, being me with a big mouth,
Right, right.
looked back at him and said, "Doctor, is that a smartphone that you're holding in your hand?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "Google it."
There you go. Come on, girl.
And luckily for him, he did. And
Uh-huh.
he looked at it and he went, "Oh, not
Oh,
another word."
I'd have said, none of your dang business. I'm here for this issue. Treat that alone. Mind your
But
business.
yeah, but because some days we are fine. Some days I'm up at 5 o'clock in the morning and, I'm bouncing around and I'm working and I'm here and I'm there. And other
Mm-hmm.
days I can't get out of bed at all. It's
Mm-hmm.
just let me just curl up in a ball in the corner and soak in the pain. But it's not sleeping. The last
Mm-hmm.
3 nights I've slept for 2 hours and that was it. No
Wow.
sleep the rest of the night. So of course I feel crappy all day the next day. I can't concentrate. I can't do the things I need to do. But somebody could come in and say, I need you to do this, Nancy. And I'd say, well, I really can't, Monica. I can't do the podcast today. I just feel like crap.
Yeah.
And you're going to go, what better came along? You're not.
Well, not me, but I get
Well,
what you're
no, but
saying. Yeah.
I'm using that
Yeah.
as an
Yeah.
example.
Yeah. I get you. I hear you.
People don't see these invisible wounds
Wounds.
or
Yeah.
disabilities, and so they think that you just don't want to do something. If your friends are used to you going out and partying with them on a Friday night and now you're saying, I can't do it, they're
Right.
going, all right, well, you got something else cooked up. You don't want to see us anymore. Why are you mad at us? What's going on? And
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
reality, you just don't feel good.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So explain the mission of Invisible Warriors.
Well, Invisible Warriors is there to provide a couple of different things. First and foremost, we are an advocacy organization. I do what I'm doing today. I'm
Mm-hmm.
out there talking to people, sharing the statistics, sharing the stories, letting people know that these women do exist, that it's a serious issue, that we need to do something to help. I've gone in front of Congress. I'm talking to doctors.
Wow.
I'm trying to talk to state representatives here in the state of Alabama. So that's the number one. The number two is for the women themselves. You can say, well, they've got Facebook groups. Well, my Facebook group, somebody got in there, took down my Facebook group, and I lost 17 years of friends and posts and pictures and stories.
Oh my
And
gosh.
Facebook won't help get it back. So everything that I have put out there in 17 years is gone. And I've had to
Oh my
start all
gosh.
over again. It can also, they control what you said. I can say in a post, I can say MST. But if I say military sexual trauma, that goes against Facebook standards. And they
Oh
won't let
yeah.
me post my post. Our group has a private community with a lot of different peer support groups in it. So there's a group for diabetes, there's a group for MST, there's a group for PTSD. We have a group for caregivers. It's private, it's safe.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's touching it except who we allow to touch it. So you can't
Right.
have a bully in there who's going to be bad mouthing you. It's a place where you can go, you can talk, you can feel secure, you can feel like you're part of a family, and can be comfortable. You can be comfortable. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
You can be comfortable crying, or you can be comfortable laughing. We also have resources in there. We have training programs. We have a monthly, it's called Come to the Table, where we have specialists who come in and talk on different subjects and, share knowledge and experiences, and then we open it up to the community to talk about. And again, it's a way for people to feel like they're not alone.
Right.
So it's we have a coder who can look at medical bills and say, well, you shouldn't be charged for that. That's, you didn't have that done. And they can help you talk to your insurance and talk to your doctors and get wrong bills taken care of. So it's just a variety of things so that you don't have to get out there and search and look and figure all of this stuff out on your own in a million different places. It's all right there.
Wow. So we're talking with the president of Nancy Becher of Invisible Warriors today. It's an organization that will help women, whether veteran or civilian, deal with traumatic injuries or traumatic emotional issues. And so we're inviting you all to check out invisiblewarriors.org. And is it .org or .com?
.org.
.org. And so share with us, Nancy, a little bit about the impact that this has had on those that are maybe looking into this or joining all your private groups and stuff like that. What has been the outcome of all of that and the impact?
Well, we don't have a huge track record because we're new. We just really just started
2 years ago, right?
Right. And we're still just trying to put all of the pieces together. But we've had two benefit concerts, and that was a way to share with the country the stories, the music, let women know that they can still have fun. Even if they need to watch it from bed, they can watch the live stream. So we've done that. We're running our third annual art contest right now, where anybody who's an artist can create a picture, a photograph that says, this is what I believe it to be like for a day in the life of a warrior. And then we're going to turn those pictures into 2025 calendars next year.
Oh, wow.
So that people can see this beautiful artwork and say, even though someone is going through life's troubles like this, they can still produce beautiful things. And that in turn brings us in money so we can help pay for medical issues for people. We can get me to Congress again.
There you go.
We can do all the things that that we need to do to help support the women. And we have before my Facebook was taken down. I had between my own podcast, between all my social media, I had about 30,000 followers, and so people were seeing all of the posts that I put up. We have a weekly newsletter that usually starts out with a story about someone and what they're going through with this disability or whatever PTSD does to them and how they live their lives. We do the whole story. And then the second part of it is tips and strategies on what to do to deal with whatever the story was about. And then the third piece of that is events that are going on, ways that you can get involved, ways that you can support the organization itself. So there's a lot we're trying to do right now.
Right. So talk a little bit, are you guys actually needing some help to get this up and running as far as donations, right? Give us a little bit of what our listeners can do to try to help you get Invisible Warriors up and running strongly.
Well, any donations are happily accepted. It can be $5. It can be $5,000. We don't care. We just need funds because we cannot operate. We have, things that we have to pay for, which are office, but we also have, we're trying to get money together. So if someone comes and says, I need a wheelchair. My new wheelchair was $8,000. And luckily I had insurance. But what if you don't have insurance? And what if your insurance says, no, we're not going to pay for that? We're trying to get money, together so that we can afford to help people pay for some of their medical care. If you don't have insurance and you need to go see a alternative doctor, they don't take insurance.
Right.
It can cost thousands of dollars to see an alternative doctor, and the alternative doctor may know exactly what's wrong, but you don't want to have to mortgage your house in order to pay to go see a doctor. So
Exactly.
we're trying to get funding for that. With the art contest specifically, we're asking for $25 donations for you to
Mhm.
put a picture into the contest. And then once that part of the contest is over, you can vote. And a vote is $1. And you can vote as many times as you want. And then the top 12 pieces of artwork are going to go into the calendar.
Oh,
Then we're
wow.
going to be selling the calendars. Then we're going to sell the calendars for next year. So this is funding. The concert, we next year's concert is going to be a black tie gala. So we need sponsors
Wow.
for that. We need people to say, I want to get behind this. If anybody knows Gary Sinise,
Right?
I am desperately
Exactly.
trying to get a hold of him to have him come and
Right.
be a part of the concert next year. I mean, anything that someone can do, we appreciate. That can be time, it can be talent. We need a social media volunteer who can help us put social media out there.
Mhm.
We need fundraisers. We need people to just volunteer to do all kinds of things. And because we are a virtual organization and not just doing things in Alabama, we're trying to get this around the country. We
Uh-huh.
can have volunteers from anywhere. And it's just really hoping to get people who are as passionate as I am, and as the other people who run the board for this organization are, in creating the different pieces with the program that we're talking about, that have all of the peer support groups. If
Uh-huh.
you have a disability yourself and are willing to monitor and be the support person for that chat group, we need
Mhm.
people to do that, who can come in once a day for 15 minutes and see if there's been any posts in that chat group that you can respond to, or you can put an announcement in, or a meme or something. So it's just anything and everything that somebody wants to volunteer for. Our biggest issue with volunteering, though, is that we spend a lot of time training. We spend a
Mhm.
lot of time getting the people to know what it is that we do and how we do it and why we do it. And then they leave after 1 or 2 months. And
Wow.
we're hoping that we can find people who have the same passions and are willing to give us at least 6 months of their time to do these volunteer efforts.
Wow. Wow, that is amazing. I mean, to even have somebody, a coding expert on there, because that's half the battle, even with VA. I know that even just going out into the economy to get the doctors, the supposedly good doctors separate from the VA, it's that sometimes it gets such a mess. You get those EOB statements that, and it's like, well, this is your partner. You're like, no, this was approved by the doctor. You have the wrong code. And I've been there. I'm in it right now with a situation. They want to charge me $600 for part of a procedure that I'm like, well, wait a minute. You just covered the whole entire procedure, but now you don't want to cover this. And so that is really amazing to be able to have that. You mentioned about the podcast. Are you still podcasting now?
Yes.
Oh, wow. So what made you want to start the podcast?
I I have been doing a podcast for about 6 years,
Oh my
and it
gosh.
and it started out being, I was a business consultant before I got hurt.
Uh-huh.
And my podcast originally, it's morphed several times.
Mhm.
So you
Yes, it
will
does.
you will find episodes where we're talking about run better businesses. You'll find episodes on productivity tools and different things like that. And then we switched about 3 years ago. We switched it over to the chronic illnesses. Mm-hmm. And now within the last 6 months, it has morphed again into looking at the women vets.
Well, yeah, I know the whole morphing thing. It's like as you grow and as you learn and your curiosity as a host grows, or maybe the curiosity of your audience, you tend to go, do I go here? Do I go here? So it's always changing. So what is the name of your podcast?
Silent Strength.
Oh, wow. How did you come up with that name?
Our tagline is silent no more. So, I wanted the silent in there. And for most of us, because we don't talk about these things, we're silent, right. But yet we have to have strength or we wouldn't survive.
Right.
So.
Right. That is amazing. Where can we find your podcast at?
You can find it on all the different podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, all the different. It's actually hosted on Podbean.
Oh, okay.
You can find it. You can find it anywhere. Just Google Silent Strength and see. If it doesn't come up under Silent Strength, because I'm not sure it's gotten changed over everywhere yet. The old name for it used to be Don't Wait Till Pigs Fly.
Oh, wow. No, that's good. Boy, but you could use that everywhere, couldn't you? Mm-hmm. That is really good. Well, Nancy, I really wanted to say thank you for joining me today. And it has been an eye-opening to just the fact that we could go back and go after those guys was just, that is something new I have not even heard of before. So that's great. And then I want to thank you, the veteran or the veterans, yes, that are watching this. Thank you, the viewers, for joining us again today on the Graceful Warrior podcast. Remember, lace up those combat boots. It's a battlefield out there. Have a blessed day.
Thank you for tuning in to Graceful Warriors. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information and updates, please visit the websites, thegracefulwarrior.com or monica-hansen.com. Until next time, remember to lace up those combat boots.